started. Okay, I'm hoping that you all can see that. And let me move this around so I can click present so it's nice and big for you. All right, so I am Labeaud Colbert. I am the founder and CEO of Labeaud LLC. I work closely with Reggie in advancing the seed, and today I'm stepping in for Dr. Natalie Forrest to talk about her topic, which was success revolutions, hidden power of patterns. But if you don't mind, today I'm going to put my own spin on it, and I hope that it's going to be valuable for you today. I believe that it will. I'm going to say a lot of things. So if you are a note taker, definitely take notes, but we are streaming live. This is going to be on Facebook for you to go back and listen on and share if you'd like to. So today we're going to talk about 3 success revolutions, the hidden power of patterns. Now there's many types of patterns that we have, but today we're going to look at ego. What are some of the negative patterns that are associated with ego? Now, if you would have asked me a year ago or even 10 years ago, if I had an issue with ego, I would tell you vehemently, no, absolutely not. But as things change, you begin to grow and mature, especially when you take on new roles in life. You start to learn a little bit more about yourself. Some of the things that I'm going to share with you are not from the standpoint of an expert, but as a student, someone who's still learning to master these things. So, you know, some of these things, I'm going to ask you questions. You don't have to answer them in the chat box, but I want you to think about them in your personal life and take some time to meditate on them later and see what they mean for you. All right, here's a question for you. What is your definition of success? What is your definition of success? Many times we get caught up in pursuing the success that we see others achieve, people that we've deemed as our heroes in life. But how will you know that you're successful? How will you know? What will life look like when you end up there? That's something I want you to ask yourself. So let's get into it. Now we're going to do an exercise. I know I can't see or hear you, but I just want you to play along with me, okay? Most of us have a Facebook page. Let's imagine that you've posted your greatest life achievement on Facebook. Today, you just posted your greatest life achievement. Now, I want you to take a minute to think about, for you personally, what would be your greatest life achievement? Okay, you just posted it on Facebook. Now, just imagine that the comments, instead of them being full of praise and applause, is full of rejection, criticisms, and people who are underwhelmed by your statement. They're just yawning. It's no big deal. They have negative things to say. There's no celebration. How do you feel about that? Let me ask you, if you were to post your greatest achievement on Facebook and this was the reaction you'd get, would you still be doing what you're doing? Would you still be going after the things you're doing? Or would you give up? See, if the answer is you would give up, or if you would feel hurt by that rejection and criticism and underwhelmed response, that means you might have a problem with ego. Today, we're going to take a new angle, a new perspective on what the word ego is and how it affects the patterns. You're going to notice some patterns that I talk about, and you're going to see yourself. I don't know who you are. I haven't met any one of you. I don't know what you're doing. But I know that in today's society, ego is something that is celebrated in many ways. So let's look at some of the dangerous things our ego can cost us so that we make sure that we stay on task. You must prepare for the day that your parents are unimpressed. You might say, I don't have a good relationship with my parents, or my parents passed away, or I never knew my parents, but I'm talking about the people you look up to. You must prepare for the day that your parents are unimpressed and your friends do not clap for you. Imagine that you become the person that you dream of being in your story fairy tale life that you're living in. And in that movie you're living in, you become the person you've always dreamed of, but no one has the reaction that you thought they would. You have to prepare for that day because society cheers for the underdog. I don't have to know you to know that you see that once someone does finally blow up and they become a big success, people stop cheering for them. They start criticizing them. Isn't that right? Why is that? We are not in control of other people's reaction to our success. So if you are doing things in your life and you're dedicating your life to proving people wrong and trying to impress them or to prove your importance in this world, you have to prepare for the day that people will not clap for you anymore. Instead, you will be met with what we talked about in the exercise: people being underwhelmed, people not clapping, people putting us down. So if in the end, let's say you make it all the way to the end and you're at the peak of life, and now that you're at the peak, you find out, now I have all these people who they're not happy for me. So I work all this time and work so hard and people aren't happy for me. What's the big deal then? What's the point? What is the point of your life if people won't be happy for you when you get to where you're going? The point is to focus on your work, your actual work, the work that you're doing that is very important. That has to be the focal point of your life, not the credit that comes along with it. So let's talk about that. So let's address the patterns associated with ego. Here's another question. Are you consumed with trying to convince people of how important you are? Are you consumed with trying to convince people of how important you are? Here's the first pattern. Pattern number one. This is how you know if you're consumed with trying to convince people of your importance. You need payment, praise, or credit for any small achievement you make. Now, 10 years ago, I was a huge victim of beginner's conceit. Everything I did, I thought was brilliant. And if anybody didn't recognize that brilliance, I felt victimized and I felt indignant. What happened as a result is this: when you live like that, your ego will assassinate every project before it's completed if acknowledgement isn't a part of the process. So what happened when things got hard, I would give up because people weren't recognizing how brilliant I was. You'll stop doing anything that doesn't feel good. So many people quit their jobs, they leave their 9-to-5s, they become entrepreneurs because it doesn't feel good. Because people assume today that we are paid to like our jobs. We're not paid to like or love our jobs, we're paid to do our jobs. You don't become an entrepreneur because you hate your job. That's ego. You don't become an entrepreneur because it doesn't feel good to do hard work without credit. That's ego. If you live like that, the work that you deem as so important that you try to sell to people that is so important will not even make it to the finish line because no one is cheering you on the sidelines. And for me, I failed business after business after business and project after project because I needed a cheering squad and I didn't have one. Realize everyone dreams big until big tasks and big obstacles become an issue. That's when most people allow their feelings to decide their commitment level to the task, right? What happens when you encounter those big obstacles? Will you decide that this doesn't matter anymore? The work doesn't matter? Okay. Here's a question. What is your reaction to personal failure? What is your reaction to your personal failure? In life, you're going to see a lot of shady things happening as you're trying to climb the ladder. What's important is that you remain the best version of yourself. That means that you keep your values intact when other people resort to cheating, because your ego will say, I know that this person is cheating, so the only way to beat them is if I cheat. I used to be a bikini bodybuilder. I know I don't look like it right now, but I'm off season. My coach, she was also a bodybuilder as well, but in the category above me. And she decided she was not going to go back to it. And I asked her why. It's because she decided that she made a personal decision that she's not willing to sacrifice her femininity in order to win. Because these days, the standard is at a level where, you know, you have to literally be taking steroids, the females do, in order to win in certain categories. But you literally are, you know, chemically making yourself a man. And she said, I'm just not willing to do that. She wanted to keep her values intact. She wasn't going to cheat because other people were cheating. When I would stand on the stage as a natural bodybuilder next to other bodybuilders who were huge, I knew who was cheating. But I didn't say to myself that I needed to cheat, right? Because I liked the sport more than I liked winning. Every successful person has hit rock bottom, okay? You need to know how to react properly to your failure. Remember that genius is never enough. Just because you're smart and brilliant and talented, you're a great singer, you're a great dancer, you're a great author, you're a great writer, you have a raw talent, that does not mean it's enough, okay? That can only bring you so far. I'm also an actor, right? Raw talent with acting, that is not enough. It'll never be enough. You have to be good at your craft. You have to master your craft, and that is a process, okay? Misfortune is going to hit every one of us. It's an uninvited guest, but you decide how long it stays. Are you going to be a victim? Or are you going to let that hurt your ego so bad that it just completely takes you out of the game? That happened to me before. Walked away from everything for about 3 good years, didn't care about anybody or my mission or passion or purpose or anything that I felt like God put me on this earth to do. What's going to happen when you hit rock bottom? When you hit rock bottom. Ego says, you're not the problem and this isn't worth it. You're not the problem. You're not the reason you didn't get picked. You're not the reason you didn't get promoted. I'll tell you something. The other day, I was looking for one of my certificates because I wanted to reference it. I was going over some of the old stuff I used to send out, you know, to get picked up. I was a writer and all that, teacher and everything. I looked at the stuff, you know, it was really good stuff. But I think at the time, I thought it was really, really great. Sometimes when you actually go look back at what you thought was just like genius, you realize it wasn't really that great, right? Now, at the time, you thought that the people that rejected you or rejected your work, you thought they were haters, but then when 10 years down the line, you look back and like, wow, what was I thinking? Most of our problems are arbitrary, and your ego will let that stop you. So when you get that rejection letter, when you get rejection and turned down over and over and over and over again, that'll let you, that will make you stop. I remember when I was younger, people always used to tell me, you should be a model, right? When I grew up, I said, well, maybe I'll give it a try. I started submitting everywhere, turned down, rejection, 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 rejection. It turns out I'm too short and there's nothing I can do about it. Then after a while, I started to get photographed a lot, started to get a lot of attention, get movie roles and different things like that. And now I model whenever I want to, because there's different types of modeling. You don't have to allow the rejection to stop you, but you also want to be careful that you're not being delusional either. And there's a fine line. Pattern number 2, your ambition leads to an undisciplined pursuit of more. Undisciplined pursuit of more. What does that mean? An undisciplined pursuit of more means I'm going to take on things I'm not ready for. I'm going to go after everything that I don't have because I need more. Okay? That's what I would do every year. Every year I would do my taxes. Okay, if I just need to make 20,000 more. Boom, 20,000 more happens. At the end of the year, just need to make 20,000 more. Boom, 20 more thousand. You go higher and higher and higher and higher. And then you're like, now statistically, I'm supposed to reach happiness at this income amount. This is me talking to myself, because I actually researched how much money do you need to make to feel happy. It's not $75,000. It's not $72,000. I'll tell you that. It's not $72,000. That's what the statistics says. It's not that. You'll make it all the way up to 100,000 and still be wondering. Okay. How much do you value what others have to say about what you've achieved? Because if you let that rule you and you're ruled by that, you have a problem with your ego. Pattern number 3, the belief that effort is enough. Effort is enough. I know I may not look like it, but about 10 years ago, I used to have diabetes. I say I used to because I've reversed the symptoms. That's how I got into bodybuilding, is because I just determined within myself that I was going to not only beat this, but I was going to become exactly what I thought I couldn't. And I did. But along the journey of that, I got discouraged and I quit several times. Sometimes for a few weeks, sometimes for a few months, sometimes for a whole year. I would just stop exercising and stop eating right. Because I kept getting to a point where I'm like, I don't understand why my effort is not enough. Later on, when I got into training and bodybuilding very, very seriously, I started to realize that what I thought was enough in the past was not even close to what was required to look like the person I was trying to look like. There was no way. But in my mind, because it was hard for me, I thought it was enough. Your level of hard is perceptive, is relative, okay? It's just your perception, okay? People will look at a trainer and go to them, or a bodybuilder, and they'll say, what's your workout plan? What do you eat? Well, that doesn't matter to you because you're not at their discipline level, right? You couldn't handle their workout. You couldn't handle their eating regimen and their restrictions because Your effort has to match their level, right? Here's some things you need to think about. You'll give yourself permission to give up because you tried. That's what ego does to you. This is how you know that you're in a bad pattern of ego or egotism. You're giving yourself permission to give up. Your ego won't let you continue to work hard on something that doesn't give you praise. Are you the type of person that gives up a lot? You can't stay focused on one thing. You just keep chasing colored balloons. Distracted, 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 abandoning, jumping from one idea to another. I know what that's like. Here's a second thing. You won't sacrifice what you love to do what needs to be done. Every time you say yes to one thing, you have to say no to something else. What are you willing to sacrifice? Your time is a commodity. There's a difference between being innovative and being a good leader. I remember I wrote a book called Ethical Leadership. I gave it to Corbin. When I wrote that book, I was not a leader. I was just in the beginning stages of being a leader. I wrote that book based on what I had observed from the leaders in my life. Now I have the experience. I thought at the time, because I was a very creative person with good intentions, that made me a good leader. Sometimes you think that because you're talented or you have a really good skill, that means that you would be a good business person. That's not the truth. You could be very, very talented. You could be a genius and be very bad at business. There's many great businesses that have been sabotaged by mismanagement. I'm a marketer today, but my goal isn't to become the best marketer. My goal is to be the best leader of my company, to manage it the best. Because if I don't master management, every idea I have will fail. Number 3, you'll assume that your success will result in fame. If fame is the end goal, you have an ego issue. My daughter, she's 16 years old, just now graduated high school. For a year, she's been telling me, I want to be famous. What do you want to do? That's what I would ask. What do you want to do? I want to be famous. If you go and look on her page, she's gorgeous. She models and acts. She's a paid model. She's a genius. Very smart, very talented. The end game shouldn't be fame. This is why I'm making her watch right now. She's watching. Many successful millionaires are people you never heard of. Never heard of. And that's the way they want to keep it, because they want to be happy. Maybe you don't know what that means right now, but one day you will. So here are some keys to protect against your ego. Keys to protect against your ego. Number 1, stay grounded. Delusion often disguises itself as confident. Many people are successful business owners and they're confident. There are also many failures who are confident as well. Remember that. Confidence is not the indicator of future success. Keep learning. When you stop learning, you've forgotten what's most important in life. You are only limited to your understanding, right? Your current understanding. So you don't want to limit yourself by thinking that you're the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room and you're surrounded by idiots, you need another room. Choose wisely. Choose what wisely? Your heroes. Who you see as your hero says a lot about your character and your frame of mind. Some of the people that you're following that you admire right now, you're going to become them in the next 10 years. And maybe when you get there, you'll find out that it's not what you thought it would be. Stay a student, learn from your enemies, learn from the people you beat and the people who beat you. Learn from everyone. That's what I'm basically trying to say. There are certain people who have a very severe ego problem where they only can listen to people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett. And those are the people that they listen to. And if you're not at that level, then you can't tell them anything. Eventually, they'll learn the error in that. Don't oversell yourself. Don't oversell yourself on what? Don't oversell yourself on yourself. On yourself. Enthusiasm isn't the secret ingredient to success. Dedication is. So while you see a lot of entrepreneurs that are super enthusiastic, you assume that that is what it takes to become a successful person. Again, there's many people in the valley of life, in their very low points, who are still sold on the idea that they're a winner. And there's nothing that you can say that would change their minds. So don't assume that that's what it takes, okay? Avoid labels. Focus on execution. I posted a picture yesterday of myself 10 years ago standing next to all of my certifications. I couldn't tell you today where those certifications are. I couldn't tell you because they don't matter to me. I used to proudly and arrogantly put them on display, but whenever people would come to my office in the past, they would never ask me about my certifications. They would never ask me about degrees. They would never ask me about any of that. It was very, it was arrogant. Come sit across from me at my desk, and right behind me is all of my certifications to let you know how important I am. I don't use not one of those certifications to this day. Labels don't make people successful. That's what I thought. That's why I treasured that, because I treasured the label that came with people calling me Dr. Colbert. People haven't called me that in years because I don't tell anybody about my doctorate. People don't even know. Because I'm embarrassed. How can you be embarrassed about something like that? I'm embarrassed because of the mindset that I had that made me go after that. It's embarrassing. No matter how far you make it in life, it will never entitle you to disrespect others and to look down on others. There's not a certificate on earth that gives you the right to do that. Now, if you like some of the things I've been saying, I highly recommend this book, Ego is the Enemy. It's by Ryan Holiday. There's many other books I could recommend, but this is a really good one. Now, we're going to open up for some questions. Corbin, if you can come off of mute, you can go ahead and do so. If not, I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat box.
One person asked, how do you know if you hit rock bottom?
That's a good question. How do you know if you've hit rock bottom? You know that you've hit rock bottom when you start to have thoughts that will take you down a very bad path. When you're at your most vulnerable point in life, that is when you start to hear the thoughts that tell you to turn to your vices. Okay, those self-sabotaging behaviors and demons that you have, you know, drugs, alcohol, all those rebellious things. My vice is rebellion, period. Whenever I get to my lowest point makes me think of what can I do to just be about myself. So that's one way you can know. Good question. Do we have another?
Yes, and if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A. Luis he also asked, what is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life to me means to give life meaning. Everyone living has a life. Not everyone is living a meaningful life. If you get caught up in ego, you will live your life based on the external things that you see and not the intrinsic values that come with the journey. And that's part of the meaning, is to become something, to learn something, and to leave this earth better than it was when you came into it. All right. Looks like we have something in the chat.
Yes. Edgar asked, how would you realize how bad your ego is? How would you stop your ego from taking over your life?
You know, some of those questions that I mentioned are a good way if you really just take the time to examine yourself. Here's a question you can ask yourself. If you only had 1 year left to live, what would you stop doing? Then when you find the answer to that question, look at the core of it. If it's connected to impressing, then you have an ego issue. How bad your ego issue is, you know, that's something I can't know, something that you probably will discover little by little by little. I think we all deal with it just at different levels in different areas of our life. But if you have 1 year left to live, who would you stop trying to impress? That's something you can think about.
If you are surrounded by leaders, supervisors who put you down based on their position and later pass it to those who look up to them, how can you stop yourself from falling into the same path?
Well, I wouldn't tell you to jump ship. Only you can make that decision. I know that if you battle with an enemy too long, you become like them because you start to think like them. You don't want to start thinking like your enemies, right? You don't want to stay in a toxic environment because sometimes that'll rub off on you. Some people value blind leadership over actual skill. However, you need to also be aware that it's possible that your skill set is just not at the place it needs to be. You know, when you're truly, truly great and outstanding, no one can deny that. It's not going to be about your age. They're not going to care about your ethnicity. They're not going to care about your gender, because greatness is undeniable. What I would do is stop focusing on their acknowledgement and focus on getting the work done.
And someone asked, do trials and tribulations make you stronger or smarter?
They can. It all depends on the person. There are some people who go through traumatic events and the only thing that comes out of it is that it's just a bad memory. It's something bad that happened to them that damaged them. And then there's some people who know how to take that and use it as fuel and motivation to do better and greater things. So I think that it just depends on the person. Two people can go through the same thing in life and come out on the other end very differently.
Do we have any more questions in chat?
Yeah, questions or comments? All right, we're just looking through. Maybe scrolling up, Corbin, let's see.
So we have an interesting question here.
Mhm.
They were wondering, when a life bucket list is finished, what do you do then?
When a life bucket list is finished, I don't think that list should ever be finished. When maybe you put things on your list and you achieve them. To me, what it says is that I have stopped striving because I already think I'm an expert. If you think that you're an expert and you've already achieved everything that needs to be achieved, then you won't strive to learn more. The more you learn is the more you'll want to do. So what I would do is I would start reading more, getting outside of my circle, because that's also an indicator that you are limiting yourself. Because if you've already achieved these things and you're still young, that means you need to upgrade your circle.
Diana asks, what's the difference of being prideful and having an ego?
Mhm. It's okay to be proud of yourself for achieving something or overcoming something. When it becomes an ego issue is when you need other people to acknowledge it and give you credit for it. How much pride is too much? How much pride is too much? When you associate success with acknowledgement, when you will stop doing something because no one cares, when you simply do things or go after things purely for your own benefit because you want to look good, then your pride is too much. And the crazy thing about pride and ego is that you're probably doing something good, but with the wrong motives. But it stops you, it's kind of a catch-22 because it stops you from ever actually making a big impact or doing the great thing that you set out to do, because you need so much validation, external validation, that you just give up before it's even completed. So you never actually became this person that you told everybody you were going to become. And for some people, honestly, just talking about it and talking about how they're going to do something someday is enough for them. To talk about something you're going to achieve, a book you're going to write, a business you're going to start, a nonprofit you're going to start, and all of these things, a place you're going to live, a house you're going to buy. People get so caught up in that, it devalues the process of actually going after it. Omega says, when a life bucket list is accomplished, I would also suggest volunteering in community services. Somebody needs you. That's true. Thing about being prideful is that when you let your ego get in the way, you limit your ability to really help people. The best mentors are the people who are still striving, who are still humble. The people who already feel like they're at the top aren't very useful to other people. They're not very helpful. I'm just scrolling, looking at comments, questions. All right, perfect, perfect.
So you would say the opposite of an ego is humility?
It's humility, but just be careful of false humility. I could probably write a book on that. I was an expert at false humility.
We have another question. Is there ever a time when giving up makes sense?
Giving up can make sense when, for one, it can make sense if you know that you started it for the wrong reason and you can't correct it and you really can't deliver. That's a good reason to give up. Because you should never start it in the beginning, or you oversold yourself and you know that somebody else would be better for the job. So that's understandable. Another reason to give up is if you far extended yourself too much because you were chasing the colored balloons. Oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. This is great. I want to do everything. And I used to have that problem as well. Sometimes you need to stop yourself from that because you're actually self-sabotaging. There's a good quote you might want to remember if you're one of those people. If you're one of those people who's always busy, always, trying to prove your importance and going after every great idea that pops into your mind. When the devil can't stop you, he makes you run faster. What you're going to do is tire yourself out. There's always going to be also a guilty, accusatory voice in your head that's telling you you're not doing enough, so that you can get distracted and not complete what you actually are supposed to be doing. I meet a lot of people like that. Oh, I have so many passions. I just don't know what to choose. I'm so talented in so many ways. I don't know which direction to go. Some guy told me that yesterday. And I told him, I'll make your choice easier. Which thing are you willing to focus on long-term, regardless of the fact if you ever get any acknowledgement? That's the thing that you choose. Which thing are you most passionate about learning about? Which thing do you have the most creativity in? Which thing are you willing to sacrifice for? Those are the things that you should focus on. All those other little things are just distractions. And it doesn't mean you can never do them, but there's a time and season for everything. That's one thing I've always tried to show my kids, is how to live a balanced life, and that you can do a little of this and a little of that, just, as long as it's balanced, right? I've done a lot of different things because I just felt like it. I felt like modeling, so I did it. I felt like acting because I did it. And, it's a fun thing to do. The way you keep it balanced is that you keep it in everything in its proper perspective. Lewis says, what's the difference between giving up and giving in? Giving up is a conscious decision based on responsibility, a sense of responsibility. Giving in, meaning like you're giving in to some external force. That means you probably have been worn out, or to you, for some reason, it's not worth it anymore. But remember, ego tells you this isn't worth it. So that's why you're throwing in the towel. You're like, they don't pay me enough to do this. I didn't sign up for that. That's when ego sets in. I really don't want to confuse people, because there are times when you are, in your work life, You should be working on your exit strategy, right? Because you know this is not a place, not a healthy place, or it's not, you can't grow any longer. There's no upward mobility, and it's just not the right fit for you anymore. So, you know, there's a time for that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that you're giving in. It just means that you're making a decision that aligns with your personal goals. So there's a difference between that and, oh, something, I don't like something at work, so I'm not putting up with this. I'm leaving. That's about ego. So there's a fine line. You definitely shouldn't put up with harassment or abuse or mistreatment at work. That goes without saying, but I just wanted to say it for anybody who's going through that.
And someone asked, could you elaborate on false humility?
False humility. False humility is about giving the appearance of selflessness and righteousness for the sake of it, simply so that people can see you do it. And that's your reward. Your reward is that you're seen for it. And now people know that you're a good person, and that's what you get out of it. If you do things to be seen, then it is not humble. It is not sincere. I'll tell you about a time, very embarrassing, very, very embarrassing. I was doing this high school group, and we went out to feed the poor. You know, this is already going to go bad. We went out to feed the poor and give out bag lunches. Of course, I had to bring my camera, let everybody know what I was doing. This was years ago, probably like 12 years ago. Anyway, this homeless lady came and pulled me to the side, and she said, you know, we get a lot of people coming down here with their cameras and stuff like this, you know, recording what they're doing. These people need help. They need real help. You have to make sure that when you're doing this, you're doing it with the right intention. I was like, oh yeah, oh, of course, of course. Later on, I was talking about it, and I was like, you know, I have to bring a camera and show people what we're doing so it can inspire other people to do the same thing. This is what I'm telling people. But in reality, I just wanted people to see, hey, I feed the poor. You know, that's false humility. Let's check Q&A. All right. Okay, so we're at 12:50. Okay, Edgar
Got
said,
another question.
You can read it.
All right. Do you believe people should have a plan and a plan B to reach their goal and not let the goal win, good or bad?
Edgar, can you help us just rephrase that? Do you believe people should have a plan and a plan A and B to reach their goal and not let the something if the goal went good or bad? Yeah, retype that, because I really want to answer your question. Oh, no worries. Are you asking, should people have a plan A and a plan B to reach their goal? Maybe he's saying like, what's a plan B, or should you have a plan B? Okay, all right. since I'm in the acting community and in the business community, there's a lot of mindsets that say, I quit my job and I'm going full 100 into this so that there's no plan B, so that I cannot fail. I'm not going to judge people that do that. I think that you should have different ways of approaching your goal. If you find an obstacle, all you have to do is just go back to the drawing board. You don't have to quit. You just have to adjust. You don't have to stop your goal, just adjust. Things are going to happen. You know, you go after a goal and then boom, you know, just like clockwork, something happens. You lose a job, somebody dies, somebody gets sick, you get sick. Then, you know, in those cases, you have a delay, or you have an alternative. One thing I usually would use, a question I would ask myself whenever I would get nervous, like really stressed out about something not going right. I would say, okay, in the worst case scenario, what's the worst can happen? What's the worst that can happen in this scenario? Then when I would look at what's the worst thing that could happen, then I would say, okay, now that I know what's the worst thing can happen, what am I going to do just in case that happens? All right. Now, if that happens, I have a plan. And that's how I get myself, that's how I bring myself peace when I'm stressed. Denzel Washington gave a speech that could answer your question, no plan B. Yeah. People are going to have a different perspective on it, you know. I say make sure that you have a plan, period, and that you plan for the unexpected. Plan for the misfortune, because the Black Knight is coming. He's coming on his big black horse, and he's coming to bring some misfortune. It's never going to come when you expect it, but you should expect it. But sometimes you'll find in the stories of many successful people, misfortune is actually what catapulted them into their success. Because had those things not happened, had things not gone as planned, they would have never known what their true potential was. Sometimes the worst thing happening isn't the worst thing. Sometimes it's the best thing.
We got one more question if we have the time.
5 minutes.
All right. It says, what should you do if your family doesn't understand your goals? Or that could be the work environment or friends.
If your family doesn't understand your goals.
Correct.
Your life is a garden. You decide what you plant and you decide what you uproot. You decide what's in the front and what's in the back. Every person in your life is like a different plant in your garden. Each one has their own value. Some people are going to be good for having fun with, but really bad when it comes to giving advice. So you don't go to those people for advice. Some people are going to be really good when it comes to advice, but when it comes to comfort and support, you can't call them. You can't be mad at an orange for not being an apple. So if you have family members that don't understand your goals, now you understand their limit. Everyone is showing you their level in your life. That doesn't mean they don't have any value. That doesn't mean you need to get rid of them. They're just not the person that they're not the resource that you need to go to about your goals. Some of these people will never understand. You have never been born before. There's only one you. You have your goal and your vision, and other people do not have to understand it. And you should not judge people for not understanding it, especially because you're not even there yet. You're way far back in the beginning. When I was 50 pounds overweight, the only person that could see me as a bodybuilder was me. When I showed people pictures of what I wanted to look like, they laughed. So you have to determine which voices you'll listen to. And then find some people in your circle that will actually celebrate that and actually help facilitate you reaching that goal. All right. So thank you for all of those questions. And I hope you guys had a great day today. I enjoyed spending time with you. Corbin, thank you for helping me to facilitate this. And you'll see me again helping out with advancing the seed whenever we have other speakers. Sometimes I can jump in and help. So happy to do that. You guys have been great. You guys have a great rest of your day and great weekend ahead. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye.